onions. My most recent meal had lots of onions in it. So I'm hoping that I don't peel your face off with my breath over here.
I don't think you will.
It's a small studio. We're very close. Too close.
Intimate. It's an intimate setting for the work that we do.
Intimate setting. Oh, man, it's fall. So all the crazy Karens are getting their pumpkin spice lattes.
Oh, dude, everybody loves a pumpkin spiced latte. Yeah, everything's pumpkin now, right? Yeah, I don't like pumpkin spice lattes.
Do anything. I don't do any. I'm not a pumpkin guy.
I'm not either. I like the idea of baking pumpkin seeds and like chewing on them. Have you ever? You've never done that?
No, I've done it. Well, I haven't personally done it. I've had pumpkin seeds, and I don't think they're very good.
Yo, that Tyreek Hill patron.
Yeah,
I got some kudos for that one. That was a fun one.
Yeah,
for patrons only, dude.
Patrons only.
I just did the math while I was coming over here. It took me a while to do it because it's 12 months a year, right? So the subscription for $5 a month.
Okay.
So I had to do 5 times 10, and then I had to take 10. So it's $60, and you get all of the episodes.
You get patron exclusive episodes, and you get early access to all our episodes.
Which I was told that I was like amped during that episode.
You were
that
super
we just
amped.
Released.
You were super amped. I think you come in with a different energy on the patron only episodes.
It could be.
I feel
it's probably worth $60 a year.
I think you feel a little safer or something. You feel. Yeah, I don't know. I think you feel a little safer.
I went off on that guy.
Well, yeah. I mean,
what I called him entitled. I think.
Yeah, I think that most disgusting thing about that whole case is that now he's a professional athlete. He makes millions of dollars, and he's trying to get the cop fired.
Yeah, that's so rude, dude.
Come on, dude.
Has there been any follow-up to that? Have you done anything?
I haven't. I mean, I know the cop's on administrative leave.
Yeah.
Not duty, administrative leave. And as far as I recall, and he also, his jacket isn't great. They broke out his jacket.
Oh yeah.
He's had complaints and stuff. And I would say, watching him interact, I'm like, this guy probably has gotten other complaints.
Oh yeah.
He's
old school. He probably needs to retire. You can't police like that.
I don't know.
In today's world.
No, definitely not.
In Florida, you can a little bit more than most other places, it seems. But
listen, like we do patron only content. We record patron only content. We put out patron only content, and yeah, like you said, Gary, $5 a month gets you access to all that content. Become a patron. Go to www.diakonosacc.com. Hit the support tab.
Damn.
And you can.
It's a little clunky website. We probably should put some work into that. We got to get our tech person on that. It's a little clunky because I went through it the other day and I was like, man, I don't think I would spend this much time trying to figure it out. But
dude, you hit the support tab and then you hit.
I know, but you got to go to low expectations and
that's because confusing. the patron website is
it's just not ideal, is what I'm saying.
It's the bet. Oh my word! Seriously.
Don't get mad.
I created the website.
And you did a great job. I'm just saying it could be improved, dude. We should always be reforming. We should always be trying to be better.
Gary, anytime you want to work on the website, let me know. I'll give you the password.
Anthony,
you can work on it.
You're so mad.
I am annoyed.
We have a tech person, dude.
We don't have anyone. We have a tech person for Instagram.
Yeah, but I'm going to get her on the website. We're gonna make it better.
Okay. All right.
When I say we, I mean the tech.
I love how you have all these ideas. Someone reached out to me about one of the patron episodes where I hadn't even remembered this, but one of the patron episodes where you were talking about your retirement and we were reminiscing about your career and stuff. Patron really enjoyed the episode.
Yeah.
And he was saying, I'm really looking forward to the patron only barbecue that Gary said we're going to do. And I said, that's a great thing about Gary. Gary throws out these ideas of things we're going to do, which means that I have to make them happen. Like, you're just like, oh, like the website, whoa, it's so clunky, blah, blah.
I don't think I said it like that at all. I said it was a little bit clunky. It's just a little bit clunky.
It's a little bit clunky. Okay, I'll come in. What if I came into your little like leather making studio, hippie leather making studio? I'm like, well, this piece of leather thing you made, kind of clunky.
I would take the criticism and I would reform myself. I would make myself better.
I'm just not as mature as you, I guess.
That's not true. We did throw out a little snippet of that episode on the Insta.
On the Instagram, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, it's $60 a year. I mean, it's worth it, dude.
It is worth it.
I mean, that's like 3 pumpkin spice lattes.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, in reality.
But how many people that listen to this podcast
very few
are buying pumpkin spice lattes?
Very few.
Yeah.
They're probably making fun of them like we are.
We're 6 minutes into this, and we haven't even said what this is. It's Low Expectations, episode number 19, Gary.
Yeah, it's good
so
to see
how am I going to do the intro music on this one?
Oh, dude, just like, it's fine, dude. It doesn't matter.
We're off to a great start here.
Anthony,
on this
it's
episode.
great to see you.
It's great to see you.
Dude, when I walked into the studio, you looked as thrilled as me.
I know. We got to get motivated.
It's like late evening.
If you consider this late evening, we are way older than
we're old men, dude. Grumpy old men, obviously.
It's not that. We're not as grumpy as all the politicians these days.
Oh my goodness.
Dude.
I just can't. As they say, I just can't.
I
just can't.
The presidential race is heating up, Gary.
Yeah, obviously Trump almost got assassinated again. Maybe not almost got assassinated, but like there was an attempt, I guess.
So one thing I didn't read or am unclear on, did this guy actually get some shots off? In his direction?
I don't think so.
Because I've read some stuff that makes it sound like maybe he fired
like
some
that
rounds.
Shots were exchanged. I saw that, but I don't know yet. I don't know. I haven't followed this one as much because nobody got hit. You know, right? It was kind of like
my biggest question about the whole thing.
Oh yeah,
and here comes the conspiracy.
Yes,
here comes. I don't understand this, and I'm waiting for someone to explain this to me. Allegedly, he was not at his normal golf course at, how do you say it? Mar-a-Lago?
Yeah, Mar-a-Lago.
Mar-a-Lago. He wasn't at that golf course. He was at a different golf course. And his time at this golf course, while he goes to that golf course at times, this was not on his public itinerary. So the question is, this suspect is not from the area, traveled a long distance to get there, supposedly took up a position for 12 hours in this, sniper's nest,
like
as they're calling it. And
we used to call that a hide.
Yeah. So my question is, where, in the military?
Yeah.
Okay. So my question is, how did he know that Trump was going to be at this location? That's my biggest question about this whole thing. Like, how did he know Trump was going to be frequenting this location if this wasn't on his itinerary, his public, schedule?
Yeah.
It didn't seem like...
Are people asking that question?
I've seen people asking it. On the flip side of that, you had news agencies there that were filming him. But then, the really, hardcore conspiracy theorists are like, why was a news agency there filming?
For the arrest?
No, filming Trump playing golf. Like, why were they there? Just because it's Trump and they were just filming him? They just happened to be there?
Don't people always follow him around, though?
I would imagine. I don't know. That's the oddest. That's the oddest thing about it. But
thankfully, it didn't happen.
But how many times is this going to happen? Well, do you think? Good.
No.
Do you think the rhetoric from the left is partially to blame for all this, for the 2 attempted assassination?
Sure.
Attempts on. Way to commit. Sure, whatever.
Like in reality, like we say this all the time, people make their own decisions. It's just weird that you're not seeing that type of violence from the right, right? Because Trump's right.
Yeah.
On the right, conservative
towards
side.
The left, right?
Yeah, you're not seeing that same type of. I guess that one chick, Greta, whatever, she was like, there's a kidnapping scheme. I guess that was a few years ago. That was apparently, but that was mostly feds. It got one guy, right?
Right.
Or 2 guys.
Yeah, because
a bunch of feds like created a group, and that was a little bit weird. But anyway, so it does seem like the rhetoric has some. I mean, when you call someone Hitler and
over and over again,
like that's what you hear. But
and the crazy thing is too, like right after this happened, it seems like the go-to talking points for the left. I think I even saw, today Harris, when asked about it, immediately goes to talking about all these peripheral issues that Trump is talking about, like the stuff going on in Smithfield, Ohio, like people eating
Or the
pets
cats.
and cats. The
Your
memes
pets
right now
missing.
are great.
Yeah.
The memes
I
are
haven't
great
seen
right
too
now.
many of them.
And you know, it's almost like there's this idea, well, Trump is saying a lot of things, so you know, he's partially
Like it's almost to be expected.
it's almost like it to be expected
like
because
if someone
Trump
says,
is such a terrible person.
I mean, if someone's saying that someone's cats are getting eaten, like my initial reaction isn't, well, let's go find the person who said that and shoot him.
right.
Or like, I want to secure the border. Let's go shoot that guy. Or, you know, I want the states to have this states reviewing abortion or whatever,
Okay.
making laws for abortion. Like my initial thought isn't to go shoot them. Or if it's the opposite, right? We want abortion for up to 20 weeks or
Right.
60 weeks or whatever.
Right.
My initial reaction isn't, well, let's go find that person and kill them.
Yeah.
So there's something going on.
It does seem like there's a very distinct rhetoric against him, hatred, like a very like visceral hatred
that we've never seen
Trump,
before.
that we haven't seen.
I guess when former President Barack Obama, when he first was like running for office, there was a lot of hatred toward him. But I don't know that it was I mean, obviously it wasn't to this level.
But you didn't see the rhetoric against Obama, like calling him or referring to him as a
from the
tyrant,
the leaders of the country,
right?
For sure, yeah, you
right.
can see that,
yeah. So, what do you think is the biggest issue? I know you love talking politics.
I hate politics.
Why do you hate talking about it so much?
I just don't like. It's just not. I don't know, dude. I think because of where I live and like it does. We've talked about this. It just doesn't affect me as much as like local politics affects me.
Yeah, of course. Well, local politics always, I think, is going to affect you more than the national politics. Right. But I think when
I think it's important. I just like, I mean, what is there to talk about? Like, I have nothing unique to say that anybody else has already said in regards to politics. Like,
well, this is low expectations, so people want to know.
I mean, I don't know what to say, dude.
What do you think is the biggest issue? I'm just going to barge on ahead here. For you personally, what is the biggest issue in this election?
Oh, man, I haven't thought about that.
You absolutely have.
Like, what are my, like, what do I vote?
What are the main things that you look at
when
you vote?
I'm a big pro-life guy.
Okay.
So, like, abortion is a big deal to me. I think it's great that Roe v. Wade was overturned. I'm thankful that the states are making the decisions and the people are actually getting a chance instead of federal government, like, legislating that. I think that's huge.
Okay.
The border is a big deal. I felt like my bills were smaller
like
4 years ago.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's, I don't know that I have a whole lot of, the federal government. I don't know that it affects my life as much as maybe it does. I just don't feel like it does. Or I don't really have, I'm not going to be able to change it. So it's kind of out of my control. I get to vote and I get to like talk to friends about it or whatever. But
see, I think that's the kind of attitude, you know, when I talk to people who don't vote, I'm like, oh, what's my vote matter?
Yeah.
Well, if 1 million people have that attitude,
sure,
which more than 1 million people have
sure,
that attitude, it does affect the outcome.
I agree.
So
I mean, I think
we should
vote,
care.
And I vote in non-presidential elections. Like,
right.
I vote every time I get a chance to.
Right. For sure. I think it's interesting. Recently, I saw someone on social media. So I guess back in July, Trump was at a Christian at Turning Point Action Summit. I don't know if you're at
I've heard of
TPA USA or something like that. And he said he was telling the group of, I guess generally it would be evangelicals that were at this, that if they vote for him, you won't have to do it more. He said, you won't have to do it anymore. 4 more years. You know what? It'll be fixed. It'll be fine. You won't have to vote anymore. My beautiful Christians, he said. So he said this.
No, wait. He said you won't have to vote again?
Right. He made this statement.
Okay.
Now, I don't know what he was referring to, if he was just referring to like religious liberty, I don't know what he was referring to. Like I don't know the context. I didn't read the whole speech, but this statement
that's getting pulled out. Yeah.
This statement got pulled out and people made a big deal out of it. And when you read it, you're like, that's probably not the best statement to make. Like
he makes a lot of dumb statements.
Oh yeah. He says a lot of things that you're like, oh, come on. Like that's not the best statement to make.
Like their pets are being stolen and eaten.
Well, there's a lot of proof out there.
They're frying cats over an open flame.
There's a lot of things that suggest that is not far off.
What do you think cat
from the
tastes
truth.
like?
It's probably gamey.
Gamey. Probably needs a good marinade, maybe.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
man.
anyways, he made this statement, and I saw something on social media where someone was like, we need to have an honest conversation. This is tyrannical behavior. This guy wants to get in office and take over and never leave office again. We need to have an honest conversation about it. And I was like, and this was from a professing Christian, and I was like, well, that's an interesting take when you have a vice president who has gaslit the American public for the last 3.5 years, telling us that the president is okay. He's mentally fine. There's nothing wrong with him. And then at the very last minute says, oh no, actually there is something wrong with him. So I'm now running for president, and I'm doing so without getting any primary votes. The first time that's ever happened in American history.
Right.
That seems a little tyrannical to me. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. And from a person who literally has told us that day one, things will change. But the last 3.5 years, she has been able to enact change. You would think she was in a position where she would be able to enact some of this change she's gonna take on day one. And furthermore, what do we believe? Like now you're against everything you and your president have stood for the last 3.5 years. Now all of a sudden you're against it,
Right.
and you're going to change it. There just seems to be a level of deceitfulness there. And then I think you hit on the other thing that's important for me is the whole abortion thing. Like, I mean, I personally think Trump is weak on abortion.
He's very weak.
He's super weak on abortion.
But I think at a federal level, he's strong.
Right. And I also, when I look at the abortion issue, I look at it as like, I'm not voting for someone. I'm voting for someone whose policies most closely line up with the Bible.
Sure.
And so when you look at Trump, while he's not strong on abortion, his ideas and his ideals about it more closely line up to the Bible than Kamala Harris's.
Well, there's no one running that would align with what we believe to be true. No,
for sure. Which is
people.
an abolitionist belief. Like it is the murder of a person.
Sure.
That's what it is. And that it's never justified, regardless of the peripheral things that have happened to create that pregnancy or the danger it creates for the mother or anything like that. So, but his ideas and his viewpoints on it get us closer to what we believe as believers,
for sure,
than Harris's. And during the last debate, I thought that Harris was most passionate about abortion in that debate than anything else. Like when that issue came up, it seemed like, as just someone watching the debate, that she was more passionate about that topic and making sure that people can murder their babies than anything else in the debate.
Right.
Which is a concern to me as a believer. So the biggest, I guess the thing that I keep thinking about, and this is such a loaded question, is how do professing believers vote for someone like Kamala Harris? Because behind the abortion issue, another, I think, human life issue is the border issue. For both the people that we're just letting come across, right now the reports out there are between 200,000 and 300,000 children that have come across this border. The American government has no idea where they're at.
Right.
We know they're being trafficked. We know they're being used in absolutely evil ways. Do we care about those people? We have to ask our question, do we care about those people? In addition, do we care about the people in this country, the safety and the people in this country? Do we care about them? Do we care about their lives as we continue to see the level of violence and murder committed by illegal aliens? Do we care about those lives?
Yeah.
And so when you take those two issues, and I'm just like, how can a person who professes to be a follower of Christ vote for the side who cares the least about those two things?
Right. It's a good question. I don't know how to answer it because I'm not going to vote that way. The important thing is to not bind people's consciences, and we have no authority over anybody. But like, hopefully where we worship, there's not a binding of conscience
Right.
or talk of who to vote for, who not to vote for, which I very much believe
Yeah,
should not come from the pulpit or from your leaders of a church.
for sure.
So I don't know, man.
But I think about that passage at the end of Romans 1 where it talks about not only the people who sin, but those that approve of sin.
Yeah.
I guess you could make the argument that, hey, Trump is weak on abortion. You're not really voting for someone who doesn't believe in the murder of children. He just has maybe a more constricted view of it, a more restrictive view of it.
Right. So then what do you do? Like you abstain from voting, or you just do a write-in? Like,
Right.
I mean, I guess you could.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. It's just something I think about often. And I just,
Have you ever had a conversation with a believer that you know to be a believer who is going to vote? Who has liberal values or progressive? I guess, do you call it progressive now?
Viewpoints? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I haven't. I think I would welcome that. I think it's such a polarizing topic that most people don't even want to bring it up with other people that they don't know because they're afraid of offending or, stepping on
That's
toes
where
or
you
anything
and I,
like that.
That's where you and I are unique, because we could sit down with someone, even if it was 2 versus 1. If it was you and I talking to someone else, I think we could have that conversation
in a calm manner
and hug again at the end.
Yeah.
Like I really think, I mean, I believe that to be true of me.
Yeah. I mean,
it might get fiery.
Yeah.
But like at the end, I would imagine we could pray together and hug each other.
Right. Yeah.
And agree to disagree, probably.
Right. Right. I mean, it's the same thing that I think about with professing Christians who, believe that we should support the LGBTQ. I'm like, you're supporting, sin, something that the Bible calls a sin. And
I don't know what that means, supporting. Like, I mean, I don't know.
Supporting, approving, celebrating, praising, the whole, like, in favor of, that whole mantra, for sure. We should be, welcoming all to hear the gospel, into the church, like come as you are to hear the gospel. But man, when you start approving of and supporting and giving your vote to those types of things, man, I have a really difficult time with it. It's like a hard thing.
Sure.
Like, I'm like, I don't know if that's a bind the conscience thing. I think that's more like, is that what we're supposed to be doing as believers thing?
Yeah.
Anyways. All right. We dived into it, Gary. You looked very uncomfortable the whole time.
I don't know what to say, man. Like,
I just think it's an interesting conversation as obviously we're law enforcement, but we're also, first and foremost, we're believers, and as professing Christians, I think it's a valid conversation to have. And I think a lot of people are afraid to have it because, like you said, they don't want to offend or bind someone's conscience or come out and say, if you're a Christian, you cannot vote the Democratic Party line. And I think, if you go back 10, 15, 20 years, the Democratic ticket was a whole lot different than the Democratic ticket now.
Oh, for sure.
It's completely different.
For sure.
And I think it would be a little more, tough to have that type of conversation with absolutes. I don't know. I think the older you get, the more you think about how different things could go for our country with an election. Right. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know that it seems like, but I think this is what all older people say. As you age, like, things become more polarizing. Yeah. They become more opposite. And it does feel like we're literally going in 2 completely different directions. For sure. Or we have the possibility of going 2 different directions. For sure. But ultimately, like, I rest in the fact that, no one gets office apart from God ordaining it, which is wild. And it blows my mind to think about that. That's like Romans 13. And like, it just shows, depending on which way the country goes, more toward God or away from God, it shows what the people are like. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it shows where we are as a people, as individuals, but as a group of people
where are we headed? Are we headed toward God, or are we headed away from God? And it shows what the heart of the people wants.
Right.
What is right in their own eyes. Like I forget
Right.
where that's found in scripture,
Yeah.
but they did what was right in their own eyes. And that's literally like what we're seeing. We're seeing that play out.
Oh, right in front of us.
Exactly.
It's being laid out right in front
And
of
that's true from the family level
us.
to like a community level, and ultimately to a state level and a national level. Because you have some states which are super conservative. You know what I mean?
Right.
Think of Texas or
Right.
Florida. Like, they're pretty conservative states,
Right.
and they have different values than they do in New Jersey,
Right.
Washington, D.C. Like,
Which is interesting, just how it differs from state to state.
which is good. I think that's a good thing. But national elections can change it. I don't know. It shows the heart of man.
Yeah. Yeah. If the elections are legit.
Yeah, there we go again. All right. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's
No, I
just
agree with you.
seriously. Like,
I agree
if
with you,
the
yeah.
elections are
Listen,
legit.
one thing that annoys me is this. Former President Trump, he seems to exaggerate for effect.
Right.
I don't think that's a good quality. Everybody does that. I exaggerate.
I
for
thought he
effect.
did terrible in the debate.
He did terrible in the debate.
I thought he did
He
awful
didn't do
on it.
great. He should have. Yeah, he should have fought with
should
the
have let
moderators like he did the last time.
Right. And he should have set his ego aside and argued the policies and points, because he can destroy Kamala Harris on policy.
And listen, politicians aren't humble people.
Right.
They're just not. At least the ones running now are not. They're not humble people.
Right.
And I don't know that you can win an election as a humble person, because that's not what the people want.
Yeah. And that's, I think,
Which shows the heart of man.
Which shows the heart of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like I try not to get too spun up on it.
Yeah.
I can obsess, like, you know me, Anthony. I can obsess over things. And if I would spend time watching debates, always on Twitter, seeing what Trump says and Kamala says, and like, I can really become obsessed and like really think.
Maybe I'm too obsessed about it.
And I don't, maybe not, but like, I don't want to dwell on things that are sort of out of my control. I get to vote, and I can influence those around me, and I can speak truth to my family and my friends. But like
why would you dwell on that when you can look at my website and say it's clunky?
Exactly. Yeah.
Never gonna let you live that down.
Well, Bureau, it's just clunky, man. We're gonna fix it. It's gonna be fixed.
Okay, we're gonna fix it, folks. Here we go again, just making promises. It's like Gary Lowe is the Trump of this podcast. It's like it just makes promises.
Yeah, exaggerating, making promises,
bloviating, exaggerating.
I think I'm gonna put a picture of a
Cats are dying.
Cat being baked or something.
I love the memes, man, with the cats all dressed up in military gear and like
ready
ARs and like ready to fight.
Dude, cats are feisty. They're a little bit difficult. Like a dog would be easier to take and kill and eat.
Probably the best way to investigate this is to go to Smithfield, Ohio, see if there's any Haitians with a lot of scratch marks on them.
Yeah, why hasn't anybody done that? Or have people done that?
Dude, there is quite a bit of video evidence, police report evidence that this is happening.
Are you sure?
Well, okay.
The internet says.
It appears that there is. There's been interviews with people who claim to be Smith. Like, here's the thing. You don't know.
Yeah. It is wild to think about this. If a town of 30,000 people.
And this isn't being refuted.
What?
The amount of illegal immigrants that they're bringing into the town.
Yeah. Leave the cats out of this, right? Just, it changes your culture.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And maybe for the good, maybe for the bad, but it ultimately changes the culture.
For sure.
Yeah. I mean, specific, like driving habits, right? That's been the big thing, right?
Yep.
That they're driving crazy.
A lot of accidents.
It's wild. Like, it just seems funny.
Yeah,
like, it's just weird. Like,
well, I mean, look at New York City. Look at the amount of robberies and thefts that are taking place.
What is that?
By
Because
people on mopeds and motorbikes.
Okay.
So
is that illegals though, or is that just the culture of New York
a lot of it's illegals, because that's like a third world country type thing, and you're welcoming into these urban areas, and so you see that type of crime rise because that's the type of thing that is happening in the countries they're coming from.
And mopeds are cheaper, they're easier to find, they're easier to
Sure.
steal, they're easier to like whatever than a
Sure.
car.
So like one great podcast to listen to is New York Retired and Unfiltered, New York Finest Retired and Unfiltered.
That's the guy you interviewed, right?
Yeah, with John McCary and Eric Dim.
Okay.
You know, and those guys are killing it right now.
Are they going
on
nuts?
New York? Because they know the inner workings, they have connections and stuff. All the brass there is getting subpoenaed by the FBI. Their phones have been seized. Like,
why?
dude, it's crazy there. Like, we haven't even gotten into it on this podcast because I don't really
Because they're
feel
doing
like
it.
They're doing it.
Yeah.
They're doing it. But they talk about that New York has welcomed the third world into New York City, and that is the type of crime that's happening now. So like your crime with like robberies and purse snatchings from suspects on mopeds has gone through the roof, and they talk about this.
Right.
So policies matter. Like policies do matter at the federal level. You know, people in like small town USA may not be feeling those policies, but they may. When you look at Smithfield, Ohio, it's not under dispute that 20,000 immigrants have been bussed into this town, and that they cannot sustain it. That they're having a lot of problems. And so the question is, okay, if that's such a loving thing to do, is it the kind and loving thing to do for the people of Smithfield, Ohio?
And ultimately, I think the federal government is responsible for its own people.
Yes.
Ultimately.
That's
like, I think that's the biggest point, is like, we should love on others, and our policies should be kind toward other countries, and we should have like a legitimate
immigration process.
Policy.
Absolutely. 100%.
For sure. But like, you can't, at the detriment of your people, just allow everybody to come in.
The protection of your people is the primary role of government.
Right.
The protection of your people.
From both foreign and domestic.
Yes.
So like,
yeah, it's a crazy thing. So
how much time do we spend talking about politics, dude?
A lot. But let's get into this other case.
This is episode 19. I don't even think we said that. Dude,
one
more,
we
we're
did.
at 20.
We did say that.
Oh, you did say it?
Yeah.
I'm Gary.
I wanted
Anthony over here. We could just cut all that politics
30
stuff
minutes, out. 30 minutes in, and we're like talking about it. But we want to do the other thing we want to do this episode. We want to talk about juvenile crime.
I had one more thing to say.
Okay.
Maybe one more thing. So we were talking about like the Haitian population in Smithfield. They're unique people because of the language that they speak, right? French Creole.
Okay.
So it's different than French. It's not Spanish. It's its own little language.
Right.
So like those people are going to, and everybody's got phones now, and the government probably gives it to them, but like whatever. Sure. So it's easy to contact your family and have them come to you. Why wouldn't you want to be around those who you know and are like you and have the same culture, speak the same language? So that makes sense that they're going to Smithfield, because that's where there's a rise in population, right? Just like the Muslim community up in Michigan, right? It's huge because that's like they're living together. But every people group, I'm using that very loosely. Every people group is generally going to want to be together.
Right.
You had that when immigration first started. You had the Italians in one part of New York City, mm-hmm. right? You had the Irish in another,
right?
Which is how we were founded. And maybe it was chaotic back then, and it kind of neutralized. And maybe we're in that another time of like a little bit of chaos, and it will neutralize.
The difference between then and now is that our federal government is actively engaged in flying in people who have not been vetted and putting them in
or
these
vetted
places.
Or
vetted poorly.
Yeah, I mean, Trump
and why is that?
Yeah, and Trump's making a big deal about like, they're emptying their mental health.
Venezuela
hospitals.
Absolutely 100% did that.
Okay. Man, all right. You're very
Venezuela 100% did that. That has been reported.
Like sent their criminals up here.
Yep.
Like get them out of jail, release them. Said go to the USA. Don't come back here. You go back to jail, or we kill you.
I don't know what they told them, but
okay.
That's 100% happened in Venezuela.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. I wouldn't want those people.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Immigration good, illegal aliens not good. You need some sort of border. You need some sort of vetting process. There's nothing evil about that. There's nothing bad about that. There's nothing unchristian about that.
It's also interesting what's happened. Like Springfield obviously didn't fight back like they did in the rich
Martha's Vineyard.
Right. So they tried to do that. Who was that? DeSantis did that, right?
DeSantis sent them to
they bust them in.
Right. And then all these rich people stood around and
they didn't last 24 hours.
No.
They're like, no. You can't be Martha's Vineyard
here.
Which actually bothers me. Right? Because Smithfield's probably a blue collar town.
Yeah.
It's just a normal everyday US city.
Yeah.
And they're screwed.
Yeah.
And there's nothing. I mean,
the hospital's overrun.
You can't fix that now.
Housing.
Like that's done.
Right.
That's done.
Right. I can't imagine being a resident there and, feeling like you're just being overrun. And the question is why? Why were they sent to Smithfield, Ohio?
Yeah,
A
that's a good
generally
question.
conservative state, probably a conservative area. Why are you shipping that many immigrants to that location?
Right. Yeah.
It's a question that has to be asked. And asking the question does not make you a racist.
No.
It does not make you anything. It's a question. Like, why? What would be the
Out
reason
of
behind
all
that?
the towns in USA,
Right.
why do you pick Smithfield?
Right. What was the reason behind that?
Anyway, all right.
But
Dude, we crushed that, dude. Everybody's tuned out.
So we wanted to get into a couple other things. We wanted to talk about you talked about families and how the way people vote may be related to family values and all this and that. So we're going to talk about juvenile crime and that. I want to get into that a little bit. But the first thing before we talk about that, I wanted to talk about this Officer Terrence Sutton case. If you recall back in episode 19, we're in episode
9.
Episode 9, Officer Sutton was the DC Metro police officer, 13-year veteran. He was engaged in a low-speed pursuit back in October 2020. The Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund took up his case because he was charged with second-degree murder because as he was chasing this gang member on a moped, the gang member was in an alley, went out into a street, got hit by a civilian vehicle, ended up dying. Do you remember that?
Yep.
Do you remember the case? So we talked about that back in episode 9. Again, this is a known gang member, lengthy criminal record. Suspect was on a scooter. He's legally riding on a sidewalk without a helmet, goes through an alley, fails to yield right away, gets struck by another vehicle. This pursuit is averaging like 20 miles per hour. Suspect dies. Officer Sutton gets charged with homicide. So more information, he gets charged with second-degree murder. More information has come out about this because this case went to trial and sentencing for Officer Sutton recently happened within the last week or so. So again, Officer Sutton, he was an officer for 13 years. He has 60, I found this out since the trial. He has 60 commendations. He was Officer of the Year 2 times. He was part of a elite crime unit that specifically focused on high crime areas within Washington, D.C.
So the leadership of his department put him in an elite unit,
right,
to fight gang violence
because he was legit.
A stud.
He was a stud.
Okay. I like where this is going.
So this
started to get my blood pressure up, Anthony.
Right. This suspect was part of a known gang called the Kennedy Street Crew. This gang was known for, their violence. In fact, within the last year, 12 of their members have been arrested for murder and drug crimes. So that's who he was going after.
Wait a minute. I saw a picture of him holding a baby on a couch.
Well, of course, yeah. That's always the picture they release of these guys.
Or in their graduation hat, right?
Where they graduated high school.
Not their Instagram pictures
where they're holding guns and
smoking weed,
smoking weed and 8 balls of
not
crack.
the ones you actually see on Instagram.
Right,
okay.
exactly.
Yeah.
So this guy was a known gang member. What happened was, and a lot of this information was not given to the jury in this case.
Yep.
Again, this is from, I'm getting this information from the Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund, and they had lawyers who were representing this officer, defense lawyers, and they were working to represent this officer. So this suspected gang member was out on parole at the time. He was wearing an ankle monitor, and the reason he was out on parole is because he had viciously assaulted his own mother. Okay.
Yeah.
At the time of this incident, there had been my understanding is there had been some sort of flare up or interaction between the two gangs, the Kennedy Street Crew and another gang in the area where Officer Sutton was. So Officer Sutton sees this suspect, knows he's part of Kennedy Street Crew, thought he was back in the area looking for retaliation.
Sure.
So there was more to the stop than just hey, a guy riding a moped on a sidewalk without a helmet. He's trying to interact with this person. Also, I don't know how much of this the jury didn't hear, but the judge in this case was very concerned with prejudicing the jury against the suspect in this case.
The deceased.
The deceased.
So he would be called a victim.
Which is, Yeah, which is odd because usually the judge is concerned with prejudicing the jury against
The defendant. Yeah.
But there was a lot of things that were left out in this case that would have helped Officer Sutton in this case.
That's interesting.
One of them was the fact that the suspect had strapped to his leg, drugs and money.
At the time of his death.
At the time of his death, he had drugs and money strapped to his leg. I don't know.
So he's out there slinging.
He's out there slinging. He's in an area where they just had a huge problem. There was multiple drugs in his system at the time of the incident. A lot was brought up about Washington, D.C.'s no chase policy, because D.C. has a no chase policy, but it has two exceptions. One being they're allowed to pursue a wanted felon or anyone that poses an imminent threat of death or serious bodily injury to another person. So again, defense was saying, Officer Sutton's team was saying, he believed he was there for retaliation purposes. There was more to it than just a summary violation. He believed he was trying to prevent some type of gang interaction and violence.
Yeah. So here's where I become the progressive, Anthony. I become the progressive here. Like, you got to follow your policies. I'm not saying that leads to murder. I'm just saying it's a policy violation.
I think even if you make that case, and you can make that case,
it's just not murder, but
it's not murder then.
It's not. Yeah,
I
agree.
Not violating a policy of your police department does not mean that you should be charged with murder.
It doesn't result in the murder charge.
Correct.
And I guess they putting everything together that he's just some reckless cop chasing this guy for no reason at all and causes his death. But whatever. All right, keep going, Anthony. Sorry.
So anyways, after the accident, the suspect was unconscious, but he appeared stable to Officer Sutton and other officers who were on the scene. He was actually transported to the hospital. I think he died actually 2 days later. So at the scene, they thought he was going to be okay. They thought he just got his bell rung and he was unconscious. Officer Sutton returns to the police station. He starts filling out his report. And while doing so, he and the other officers notified, hey, this suspect has taken a turn for the worse and he might not actually survive. So at that point, the case was turned over to the Major Crash Investigation Unit within the department. And Sutton's told, don't even bother finishing a report. We're taking over the case and we'll do the investigation.
Yeah, the crash team's doing the thing.
The crash team's doing the thing. So don't do this. So that was later presented to the jury as obstruction. That Officer Sutton had obstructed the investigation because he never completed his report. I don't know if it was partially done or if he didn't do anything, but that was later put towards the jury.
How do you want to do this? Do you want to break stuff down, or are you going to go through this whole thing, then we'll talk about it?
Yeah, we'll just go through the whole thing.
All right, I'll let you do it because I don't want to keep interrupting you because I have lots of things to say, but I'm going to forget everything by the time you.
So regardless of what the jury was told and not told, and I'm unclear about what the jury was told and not told in this.
Yeah, without reading transcripts, right?
Right, without reading transcripts. Everyone in the courtroom was confident that Sutton was going to be found not guilty.
Okay.
There was still enough evidence presented that everyone, including the prosecution.
How do you know that?
Again, this is coming from the legal defense.
Oh, okay. They're saying, okay.
But the reason they're saying that is because no one bothered to come back to the courtroom for the jury's verdict. The prosecutors didn't even come back to the courtroom.
Okay.
So the prosecutors in this case didn't even come back to the courtroom. Family members and friends of Officer Sutton didn't come back to the courtroom. This was like a 9-week trial.
Did the victim's family show up?
I'm assuming so. But there were a lot of people involved with the case that didn't even come back because and the Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund is saying like it's because everyone thought for sure this was going to be a not guilty, verdict. He's found guilty.
Okay.
He was just recently sentenced to 5.5 years in prison. Prosecution was seeking 18 years.
Okay.
So he got 5.5 years.
It's not terrible.
Mother of the suspects, furious with the sentence, claims that if Sutton was a black man convicted of murder, he would have gotten a greater sentence. Officer Sutton is currently out on bond.
Is he a white guy, I'm assuming?
Officer Sutton's a white guy.
Okay.
Deceased black male.
All right.
So
is this the same mother that he beat and he was on parole for?
I guess you only have one mother,
wow,
Gary.
Who knows nowadays, right?
But yes, I assume so.
Okay.
So that's just I just wanted to give an update on that case.
And then they're obviously appealing this, the legal defense fund. So this legal defense fund, is this that you can, it's kind of like a protection, like the medical professionals have like this insurance Like we can become a part of the legal defense.
No, they're not part of the FOP.
I don't mean FOP.
Okay.
There's like, I think you can get in, I think officers can like retain them.
No, my understanding about the law enforcement legal.
All right, I'm wrong.
No, I do think you're wrong. Like you normally are.
That hurts, Anthony.
The Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund, my understanding, is like a private entity that officers can reach out to or whatever, and they decide whether or not they're going to adopt a case.
Yeah, like so you plead your case with them and they either
Right.
pick it up, they don't.
So they're currently, I can't remember. I think I recently read or heard that they are currently actively trying to help 12 officers
Okay.
who have been charged with various crimes.
Sure.
My understanding is they're pretty selective. They have a lot of cases from police officers coming to them, but they're pretty selective about what cases they take. And they took Officer Sutton's case.
Okay.
And again, I don't know what level of help they give. Are they giving like actual attorneys? Are they just assisting financially? Are they assisting with, professionals or
Experts,
that sort of thing? I don't know like the
like what level
ABCs of what they do, but they took on this. They took on helping in this case and have been working hard to, prove his innocence and put out there to the general public, because most people don't even know about this case.
Sure.
They don't even know about Officer Sutton and how he's been charged with second-degree murder.
Unless you listen to this podcast.
Right.
Yeah.
Or you follow, the Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund on social media. So, yeah, it's just, I cannot wrap my mind around going to work, seeing a bad guy that is part of a gang, seeing him in an area of a rival gang, knowing that there's been a very recent flare-up and confrontation between these two gangs, understanding I should probably stop this guy and check him. He very likely could be armed.
Right.
Why is he in this area? That's just good police work.
Yeah.
He takes off on you.
Yeah, so he has a reason to stop him. That's key. You got to have a reason to stop
probable
somebody.
cause to stop him because he's riding a moped on the sidewalk. He doesn't have a helmet on, that sort of thing. That's your probable cause. But behind that, and behind a lot of these times when officers are stopping someone for summary violations, there's other suspicions going on.
Yeah.
An officer doesn't care about not wearing a helmet. He might care about riding a moped on a sidewalk. That's kind of dangerous for pedestrians.
Listen, kids jump out of like foot alleys.
Right.
People jump out of foot alleys. When I say jump out, I mean just walk quickly out of foot alleys, and then you're getting waffled by a god on a moped without a helmet on. Like that's not cool.
Yeah. So you're out there and you're doing your job. You're being proactive, and you get in a 3-minute pursuit.
Yeah. 20 miles
averaging 20 miles per hour. And this guy runs out of an alley blindly onto a street, gets hit by a car, appears to be, he's going to be fine, ends up coding and dying 2 days later. And now you're charged with murder.
And going to jail for 5.5 years.
That's insane to me.
It is nuts.
And a very decorated officer. And
this isn't some schmuck rookie guy that doesn't know anything from anything. Like this guy has done the job. He's proven himself. He's put in an elite unit to go try to attack this gang violence. Right. And he's doing his job. And then next thing you know.
That's wild to me.
Dude, it's crazy.
It's wild to me. And how do you encourage officers who work then in, again, most officers who work in Anytown, USA, rural America, they're going to be fine. Most likely they're going to be fine.
Oh, you're saying the location, DC.
I'm saying if you work in an urban environment, a highly liberal, progressive location, and something like this happens, it's like Russian roulette. Like you could be charged, you may not be charged. Like it all depends on who the DA is.
Yeah, that's right.
Whether or not you have leaders that back you up,
right? That
are like, okay, all right. Maybe he violated policy, but that doesn't mean he should be charged with murder.
Yeah.
Like, that we have a suspect who made decisions. Like the officer didn't get on his PA system and say, you better run from me. You better like not stop for me. Like the suspect made decisions to drive this action.
Yeah. Do you know anything about what the bosses in that department said or did?
No, I don't. I mean, I'm just assuming that there's no reports that anyone like went to bat for him. Like,
yeah, I guess I read that a bunch of people wrote letters, like fellow cops wrote a bunch of letters for him, but I don't know what that means. Does that mean it was bosses too? I mean,
right.
Listen, in the world of policing, I'm starting to learn this. In like the leaders of a department have a whole lot of power, more than I think I ever thought.
Okay.
I think this to be true. And if they cower and they're not strong leaders, they get pushed over.
Right.
So but if you fight back, I think you have some more strength.
But see, I think that's an important point that you make. Whereas in a case like this, I don't know if Washington, D.C. Metro has a chief or a commissioner or whatever, what they have. But if you are...
They have a leadership team for sure.
If you are the highest level in this department and you're like, wait a second, you get this, it comes across your desk, you're like, okay, I understand. If you think he violated policy, I think you can make an argument that he didn't violate policy, knowing everything he knew.
Okay.
Even if you think he violated policy, even if you say he did violate policy.
Okay.
As a chief of police, he violated policy. However, he didn't commit murder.
Right.
And you're not charging him with murder. DA of DC, you're not charging him for murder. And if you do this, I'm going to the press and I'm going to make your life miserable.
Right.
Like that is what you have. Like we're at the point right now where when you're a leader of a large department, like when you're a leader of any department, you have to go to bat for your people when they've done the right thing, when they haven't done something illegal, when they haven't done something immoral, like when they've just done their job, you have to go to bat for them. And if it means you lose your job, so be it. Go to bat for them, like with all your might.
I agree with you.
If you have that much power, then use it.
Because that's the right thing to do.
Right.
You were put in that position to lead that department.
Right. Fight nasty.
Yeah. Yeah. Your job is not to succumb to and cower to the DA or to the mayor of a town or the, the governor. Like that's not your job. It's not your job.
Call a press conference. Even if what you do doesn't keep the DA from doing what he or she is going to do, what you immediately instill in every single person in that department is confidence. Yeah. Hey, the number one guy in this department has my back if I do my job correctly.
Yep.
If I don't do anything, out of sorts.
Yeah,
just wild. But I wanted to give an update on that case because we had talked about it way back in episode 9, and I mean,
here, it is a good thing you only got 5.5 years. That's if they were asking for 20.
18.
Well, 8. Okay, round it up, dude. I'm sorry. 18 is going to feel like 20, dude. I don't know what to say. 5.5 is going to feel like 7.
20.
Yeah. He's out on bail or out on,
The judge did allow him out on bail.
While they fight this.
Yeah. You said you had some other questions or things you wanted to bring up about this case.
No, I don't know what I forget what I was going to say. It doesn't matter. It was probably going to be the same stuff we said in episode 9. Go listen to that. I probably had some things to say about something.
Anyways.
Yeah. I mean, I hope it works out. I mean, again, we talked about this before, like depending on what is allowed. And oftentimes it's odd this is what's odd to me. Usually a defendant is allowed a lot of help from the court.
Right.
It sounds like in this case, the defendant was not awarded that type of protection.
Right.
So that to me is fish. It's DC though, dude. It's DC. Like that's where we're at. Like, listen, if you're a DC officer, like you're doing great work, but you might want to find another job somewhere else. I mean, I'm just saying, like any of these liberal towns that you're working in, that people are getting charged, and this is 2020. He was charged in 2020, which was the peak of like chaos in the police world. So I get it. And it's not easy to move your family, and it's what you want to do your whole life. He's 13-year vet. He's 7 years from being vested probably. I get it. But like, look what you're up against. You can go get a job in Florida and probably be protected. You can go get a job in Texas and probably be protected. That doesn't mean it's right. I'm just saying, like, if this is what they want, if this is what they want, the people of that area, don't police there. Go somewhere else. Find a job somewhere else. And that doesn't make it, I'm not saying that that's the right thing to do, but maybe that's what this country needs, is like police officers to go find a job where they're going to be protected, where they're going to have leaders who come to back them up, where the people want them to actually fight the gang members and put them in their place and lock them up. Or we continue to get locked up for silly things like this. It's terrible this guy lost his life. He chose to run. He could have taken a hit, got a slap on the wrist is probably what would have happened. But he chose to flee, and he got smacked by a car because he drove like an idiot. Even though it was 20 miles an hour, he wasn't looking around, wasn't paying attention. He drove the narrative.
Right.
So I'm telling you, Anthony, if that's what the people want, then that's what you get. You're going to get either lazy cops that aren't doing the job, and I'm not going to say lazy, cops that are in self-preservation mode.
Right.
Which is very difficult for a real cop, because when you see wrong in front of you, you want to go after it.
Right.
But like maybe there needs to be a mindset that like, listen, if you're young and you're not a cop yet and you want to be a cop, go somewhere that's conservative. Like do some research. Don't just take the first job in front of you. Don't go to a big city and just get hired. Like maybe think about it to protect your family and yourself, and go somewhere where they're going to protect you.
Yeah. And the problem with that is that it's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy, because everyone's like, oh, the cops in the US are dirty. There's so much corruption, blah, blah, blah. And what you're going to see is more and more corruption by law enforcement in urban areas, because you have all the good cops fleeing to preserve and stay out of jail and make a living and provide for their families. And they can't hire anybody. And so standards are lowered.
Yep.
Whether they say standards are lowered or not, they're lowered.
Yeah.
Because
you're just listen, a cop is just a number. You're just a number.
You're boots on the ground.
You're part of a budget.
Right.
And you're a political talking point. Look, we hired 7 cops this year.
Right.
Look how great I am.
There's no name. It's just
you're
7
just
cops.
a number. I'm telling you, when you retire, you're replaced in a heartbeat.
Right.
Nobody cares. And they shouldn't. In reality, they shouldn't care.
Right.
You've done great work. Like the Lord is pleased with your work, whether or not you're a believer. Like you've done His work if you've done it well. So like, don't get wrapped up in, look at me, I'm going to save the world. You're doing good work, but
it's a self-fulfilling prophecy to more corruption. That and I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying,
but that's not on the good cop.
No, it's on leadership.
Yeah.
It always comes back to leadership.
It does.
It always comes back to leadership. And the people in this country that are screaming like, "Oh, the police here are so corrupt, so corrupt." Go to another country. There are other countries where the police are absolutely corrupt. Like literally, you want to go down that street, that cop there, you got to give him $10 to get past him.
Yeah.
Like absolute corruption in law enforcement. That is not the case. Are there corrupt cops? Are there bad cops? Yes, we've talked about that. We've said absolutely 100% there's bad cops, but the vast majority of them in this country are not corrupt. I think what you're going to see is more corruption now, because there's there's a lot less people who want to do the job, especially in urban areas. And so what are these urban areas going to do? They're going to lower the standards. They're all saying they're not lowering their standards, but I guarantee you they're lowering their standards because they need a body. They need bodies. They need someone on that post. They need someone in that sector. They need someone in that quadrant. So they're lowering the standards, and you're going to bring people in with a lower moral compass, and you are going to have more corruption. Over the next 10, 15 years, I think you're going to see much greater levels of corruption in law enforcement, because these urban departments have leaders with 0 spines, do not care about their people, do not care about the mission, only care about making money and saving their jobs. That's the only thing they care about.
Yeah.
And so if you have that, how are you going to bring in good people? No one good at, like, no, a lot of people are going to be like, no, I don't want to work in that department. I'm going to go work in a rural town, a rural township where I have the support of the community,
Yep.
and I have the support of my leaders, and they actually want me to.
But if that's what causes there to be change, I say bring it on.
Right.
Because again, it's
I think it's going to be painful.
That's me for those who live in urban environments, for sure.
It's going to be painful for this country.
Yeah.
We in law enforcement, we've set ourselves back decades.
Well, the leadership from city government and
the leadership from president down,
for sure.
Has, I mean, starting with President Obama. That's when all it started with the anti-police stuff. That's
right.
when
that was
all it started.
Yeah,
like,
right.
you know, President Obama calling officers out,
right.
You know, for certain things. And that's
it's a sad day, man. Dude, this is a rough one. Makes me sad. Because I don't want to see like the civilian population suffer, which is what's going to happen, because grandma's not going to be able to come out of the house because there's two gangs fighting in front of their house and no cops there to do anything.
Ultimately, the people that are going to suffer the most are
the people.
Yeah. The people.
Yep.
Speaking of people suffering.
Oh, good segue.
Juvenile crime.
All right.
A lot of people are suffering at the hands of juvenile crime.
Yeah.
So a couple things I want to talk about here real quick. A 12-year-old boy I think this is in Maryland. He keeps stealing cars. Okay. He's connected to 17 crime scenes. There's nothing they can do about this kid because he's 12. And because he isn't 13, they can't do anything about him because they can't charge him because he hasn't committed any violent offenses. So this is in Montgomery County, Maryland. Okay. So you have that case. Then you had this case recently in Denver, Colorado. A juvenile was killed by a car owner. I'll read this. This is from Denver KDVR News. The family of Elias Armstrong, that's the name of the juvenile, is furious. The man who killed the 12-year-old boy won't face charges. So this Elias was 12 years old.
Okay.
He was found shot to death in a stolen vehicle in 2900 block West 10th Avenue on the night of Sunday, February 5th. So this happened a while ago. The vehicle owner, using a phone app, tracked a stolen vehicle from the area where the car was to this location where he shot Armstrong. This is what the news puts out. They just put that.
All right. So this is the same 12-year-old that stole 17. This is a different story.
No, this is a different story. This 12-year-old boy that stole 17 cars, involved in 17 crime scenes. That's a story out of Montgomery County in Maryland. Okay. That's one 12-year-old. Now we have another 12-year-old.
Okay.
In Denver, Colorado.
All right.
And this news agency just says that he was shot in a stolen vehicle by the owner of the vehicle. It doesn't. They don't put the details of why he was shot. He wasn't just this. Yeah. The owner of the car didn't come up and just shoot him cold-blooded in his stolen car. He tracked his stolen car. He found the stolen car. He saw one of the juveniles. There was, I think, a total of 3 juveniles in the stolen car. He saw one of them running back to the stolen car. One of the juveniles in the car, probably, I think there were 2 other juveniles who were like 16 years of age. One of those suspects, they think, fired a shot at the car owner.
Okay.
The car owner returned fire, fired like 15 rounds at the car as it pulled away, ended up killing the 12-year-old.
So he shoots at his own car being driven by the thief.
Because he was shot at.
Yeah, I gotcha. Okay.
He runs up to the car. He doesn't have his gun out when he runs up to the car. He doesn't, it doesn't look like he pulls his gun until he's shot at. He pulls his gun and defends himself. And he ends up killing this 12-year-old. The news doesn't put it. They're just like 12-year-old shot by car owner.
Yeah.
It drives me crazy. The 12-year-old drove the vehicle a few blocks away where he died from at least 2 gunshots. This is what dad says.
Dad of the kid.
The dad of the
thief.
Deceased. Yeah. I think that if he would have just let the police approach the car and he sat back and waited till they got there, that my son would be alive right now. Since he took the law in his own hands, my son is dead because of him, and nothing is going to happen to him but a pat on the hand, said an emotional Thomas Armstrong, the father of Elias. Again, the 2 other suspects with Elias, the 12-year-old who was killed, refusing to talk to police, won't talk to police. Okay. Obvious in the video that the shots came from the car toward the victim before the victim engaged. And DA's office is saying, we're not charging this guy.
Good for them.
We're not charging this car owner. He
Good leaders.
was defending himself. It's a tragedy. Family is saying you can get insurance on the car, but not on his life.
Okay. Actually,
So-
you can get insurance on a kid.
You can?
Yeah.
Insurance on a kid?
Yeah.
Like what kind of insurance?
Like the life insurance.
Oh, okay.
That's a dumb statement.
Who gets life insurance on a kid? Can you imagine going to a life insurance broker and be like, hey, I want to get $1 million on my kid?
Yeah. What are you doing in the next couple years? That's funny.
But yeah.
No,
So
but you get life insurance for your kids. You can bury your kid. Like that happens all the time. Lots of people have life insurance on their kids to bury them,
really?
or it comes with your policy or whatever.
I don't know, man. I don't know of many
Dude,
people
check
that have
the
life
Google,
insurance
man.
on their kids. I have my wife and I have life insurance, but I've never heard of getting life insurance on your kids. But whatever, you do you, Gary. So that's another one.
$1 buys $30,000 life insurance policy on your kids.
Okay, all right, to help. I mean, it makes sense what you're saying.
Gerber Grow Up Plan, kids whole life insurance. There we go. So look at that, dude. Mutual of Omaha, Aflac.
Okay.
Aflac.
So then we have this other story. This was from
dude. It's sad that 12-year-old got killed, but maybe you got to learn consequences.
Listen.
Don't steal a car.
Yeah.
It's not your car.
So we'll get into that. This other Florida juvenile, this Volusia County Sheriff Mike Chitwood, he's done with it.
Dude, Florida's awesome, dude.
He's like, listen, parents, you don't want to raise your kids? I'll perp walk them. He's like,
he perp walking kids?
Dude, he's perp walking kids.
Wow.
It's awesome because they continue to make false threats to schools.
Okay.
Like bombings, shootings, that sort of thing, because they don't want to go to school. So he's like, you don't want to control your kids. You don't want to parent your kids. Don't make me parent them. I'm going to perp walk them. So he's perp walking kids as young as 10 years old. He's putting their pictures up on posters. Someone suggested, and I think this is a great idea, put their parents' pictures up with them too.
Like a family photo.
Yeah, family photo. You don't want to control your kids. So yeah, he was talking about how over the last 24 hours when he gave this press conference, they received 54 tips of like school violence, bombings, I'm going to kill people, like on this tip line that they're all false, but it's cost the department $21,000 because he has
responding,
detectives working around the clock trying to make sure these threats aren't legit.
Right.
They arrested
doing search warrants. I mean, all that stuff. Yeah.
Crazy stuff. So he's like, I'm done with it. Because generally speaking, juveniles, their names aren't put in the news.
Right.
Their pictures aren't put in the news. They're very protected.
Yeah.
But he's like, I'm done with it.
I love it.
So do you think he's onto something?
I love it, dude. I love it. I think it's good.
I mean,
at this point, it seems like crime is being committed by juveniles. Like a lot of crime.
And why do you think that is?
Fatherless kids.
So you think that 100% that's a huge problem?
Yeah.
That I think is, I wish I would have, not that I would have ever kept stats on this, but if I kept stats on the amount of people that I arrested who either didn't know their father was incarcerated, their father was dead,
or they didn't
father wasn't present.
They didn't live with their father. Yeah.
It would be in the 90 percentile, like probably high 90 percentile.
Yeah.
So I think that's a huge, I also think that we've conditioned juveniles to know that there are no consequences. Even when I started in law enforcement over 22 years ago, the consequences for juveniles was a kind of a joke, and it became an even bigger joke the longer I got on in my career.
Right.
Like these kids know, I can do whatever I want outside of murder, and literally nothing's going to happen.
Gun possession to drug dealing to shooting.
Just within the past 2 years, I dealt with a juvenile who had been arrested multiple times with a gun.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah. Like ankle monitor, or they'll put them on like house arrest, which they're not staying at their house. I don't know what to tell you. They're just not.
Right. And so the big thing is, have you heard of this ACEs?
Yeah. What's it stand for again?
It stands for
I remember I was trained in ACEs one time.
Oh, did you? So you've done this? So
Yeah.
this is a big training they're giving law enforcement.
Oh,
I
it's
never
huge.
went through ACEs
You didn't?
training. I never went
Dude,
through it.
in Lancaster City, they did it.
Yeah. It's adverse childhood experiences. And so it's this idea that it's like, I think 10 questions. And if you score a certain amount on it, you have adverse childhood experiences and you're more likely to engage in risky behavior.
Right.
So several years ago on Diakonos Cops Calling podcast, I interviewed Glenn Stoltzfus.
Yes.
I don't remember what episode. And he was talking about this and we got into a little discussion about it.
Yeah. He was big into the ACEs, I think.
He was huge into the ACEs. Yeah. And my thing to him was, that's great for determining whether or not a kid is going to act out or engage in risky behavior or commit crime. It explains maybe why that happened, but it shouldn't change the way we deal with it on the criminal justice side of things. But this thing has this help and rehabilitation aspect has completely overtaken the entire juvenile side of the criminal justice system. There are no consequences. It's all about rehabilitation and trying to get the kid to change their behavior without giving, in my opinion, any consequences at all.
Right.
So, yeah, I just wanted to see what if you had any ideas what we should be doing differently when it comes to the juvenile justice system.
ACEs are common. About 64% of adults. This is from the CDC.
Oh, the CDC.
Yeah.
We believe them.
We believe the CDC.
Cheers, CDC.
So this is the premier Center for Disease Control or whatever, right? ACEs are common. About 64% of adults in the United States reported they had experienced at least one type of ACE, adverse child experience, before 18. Nearly 1 in 6 adults reported they had experienced 4 or more types of ACEs.
Okay.
Whatever, dude. ACEs are costly.
Okay. So do you think, I think this is part of you're giving a weird look over there. What else did you just read from the CDC?
Children growing up with toxic stress may have difficulty forming healthy and stable relationships. Okay.
I think one thing it doesn't take into consideration is about the kids who do grow up in these environments with multiple ACEs, as they call them, who still make wise decisions.
100%.
It's always about this victimhood status thing.
And you aren't controlled by you're not controlled by your environment or your past or your history. You're affected by it, but you are not controlled by it unless you allow yourself to use that as a crutch.
Right.
I did this because of that.
So what do you think there is an answer for the juvenile crime problem? Because the juvenile crime problem right now in this country is out of control.
Man, at a government level,
at a law enforcement level, what do you think law enforcement should be doing?
I think we should paint with them. I think we should do crafts and arts.
This is not a
play
serious
basketball with them. I think we should be their life coaches. I think we should all this while patrolling, typing reports and answering 911 calls. I think we should maybe we cut their hair, style their hair, maybe help them brush their teeth in the mornings, maybe teach them right from wrong. We could, let's see, we could play sports with them. We could train them how to drive eventually. I mean, the police should be doing everything in reality, Anthony.
Should be their dads.
Whoa.
Should be their dads.
I think that's probably what needs to happen is they need a father in their life.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting to me when it comes to the juvenile justice system, and I think it's just a microcosm of the entire criminal justice system right now, is this idea of consequences versus help, rehabilitation.
Yeah.
And there's this idea, and I even dealt with this. What's interesting is I even dealt with this as a supervisor, as a sergeant.
Okay.
Where, you had an officer who did something silly. They needed to, face the consequences. And there were times where I believe consequences should be doled out. And I was told, well, what if we just, I think there's some things going on with them and we need to get them some help. And I would say 100% agree, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't get a consequence for the action. Just because we think there's something going on in their personal life or with them that requires some level of help or assistance, whether it be mental health, whether it be, help with a substance abuse problem, alcohol, whatever it may be. Like, I'm fully on board with getting them the help they need, but that doesn't mean that we then vacate the consequence for this bad behavior here. Like,
correct.
We should do both. Like, it's not one or the other.
Listen, if you don't make it hurt a little bit, like, you're not going to change.
Right.
You're just not going to change.
And so this idea of trying to just promote ways to rehabilitate and ways to help, I think it permeates down through the entire criminal justice system right now, but it is definitely a huge problem in the juvenile criminal justice system, because there is no focus on consequences, punishment. It's all focused on how can we rehabilitate this person to make them a constructive person in society. And the other thing that I find so interesting is that many of the people who are promoting this idea that, hey, a juvenile's brain is not fully formed, and so they're making decisions and they don't fully have the brain capacity or brain growth to make wise decisions, are generally, and who believe that kids should not be held accountable with consequences or punishment, are generally a lot of the same people who believe that if a small child says, hey, I want to be a little girl instead of a little boy, or a little boy instead of a little girl, are like, oh yeah, they know exactly what you're talking about.
There's a reason why there's a reason why we don't allow 12-year-olds to vote. There's a reason why we don't allow 8-year-olds to drive.
Correct.
Because they aren't developed. That's obvious.
Right.
But there is a level of responsibility and decision-making that they can make from a very young age. And I'm talking very young. I'm talking like months old.
Right.
You can start training a child to act correctly.
And I remember my kids when they, started to crawl.
Yeah.
And the things they wanted to get into, like
don't
put
touch
their finger in an outlet. Don't do that. Don't do that. And my wife and I, we used a form of corporal punishment. If they reached for something we didn't want to reach for, we would snap their hand.
You child abuser. That's what people would say, right?
Yeah. But there were, that was part of the training process. So, I mean, ultimately it funnels back down into a family problem.
Because
the police can't solve this problem.
They cannot.
Right.
That's not their job. That's not the mission. It's not the mission of law enforcement. It might be the mission of like the corrections or of probation or of.
I don't even think it's the mission of them.
Yeah, I don't know their mission. So
right.
But I think their mission is not. It's not working. Corrections or juvenile probation. Well, specifically, we're talking about juvenile probation. It's not working.
Right.
Most of the times when a juvenile gets arrested, it doesn't go into like a regular court system. It goes into the juvenile system.
Right.
So there's different and I think rightly so. There's some different like gradings, and it's just like it's more about getting the kid help than punishing.
Right.
Disciplining.
And I think if you have a kid who is engaged in criminal behavior, it's too late for that. Like I shouldn't say it's too late for them. What I'm saying is the criminal justice system should not be worried about the rehabilitation. They should be worried purely about the consequences of action.
I think there's you can do both. In my opinion, you can do both. Just like you said, dealing with the cop that made a mistake. Like, you should be able to do both. It's just probably two different systems kind of working together. But that's not a police officer's job.
Well, and it's really no one's job outside the family. It's a breakdown of the family. I think it goes back to exactly what you said earlier, like a lack of father figures and such. I think the one thing that I thought about when I was thinking about this and looking at all these articles and stuff is one thing that we have completely wrong in this country when it comes to criminal justice, when it comes to crime, when it comes to punishment, is we believe that mercy is owed and justice is given instead of justice is owed and mercy is given. And we've completely.
Did you write that down?
I did. I had it.
That's a real good quote. Say it again though, because I kind of
listen,
was being a jerk.
Listen, I got it. R.C. Sproul definitely had some, the great pastor and theologian definitely had some saying. He has espoused this.
Yeah. So say it again. And it's not his thought. This is a biblical truth.
This is a biblical truth. Justice. We're confused in this country. We believe mercy is owed and justice is given, instead of justice is owed and mercy is given.
Right.
The fact is that sin, that bad things, that doing bad things, like, I mean, honestly, what's crazy about this conversation is it always goes back to the gospel,
because it's the truth.
And
we live in a society where we want to come up with man-made philosophies and thoughts and man-made logics, because we don't want to believe what God has said to be true because we actually hate him.
Correct.
People might not say that, but they want nothing to do with him.
Right.
And his precepts, his laws, his rules, his way of life, which actually leads to happiness and joy and peace.
Right.
So we've decided we're seeking after that, but we're seeking it in the wrong places. So we make up our own minds as to how we're going to react to to these situations. And we're talking criminal behavior. We're not talking, you're right. We're not talking putting a finger in a socket. We're talking criminal behavior by juveniles.
Right.
And the society in which we live at this point, the government has decided that we're not going to hand out justice. We're going to be merciful, which is completely opposite of the biblical truth, of the way God has designed mankind.
And it doesn't mean that the government and the government authorities or law enforcement or the criminal justice system can't give mercy, because that happens every single day. Because
God is merciful, and we ought to be merciful people, Yet, justice is to be handed out,
And it caused me to think about Romans 13 again, that, God has put those people in government in those positions, and he's given them a sword for a reason. And the idea is justice, 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 justice. The idea of mercy is, it's given. It's a gift.
Yeah.
Like it's the given, what is expected, what should happen is justice. In all these cases, when we talk about these juveniles, justice should be doled out. I don't care if you're 12. I don't care if you're 13. I don't care how old you are. If you're out there making decisions to hurt other people or take other people's property, justice is owed.
Right.
You're not owed mercy.
Right.
You're not owed mercy.
And we have this feeling, or we have this thought and philosophy that mercy is what is actually owed.
Correct.
Like, instead of the sword of Romans 13, we're handing out lollipops. We're holding lollipops.
Right.
That's what we're holding.
Yeah.
And it's why we are where we are, right?
Right.
I mean, that's the reason why.
Yeah. Because basically we've declared ourselves to know better.
Yeah.
Like as a country, as a culture, we've said we know better. Our morality is based on every individual person. It's not based on like a standard, Yeah,
you make it up as you go.
You make it up as you go. And so
we evolve. I mean, it all comes back to, I think it comes back to Darwin. It goes way back before that, but like Darwin is like where we're evolving.
Right.
So like we're seeking after the better, and this is the better way, is to just be merciful and not have any justice at all.
Yeah. 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 It's, I was intrigued as I was doing the outline, looking at these cases. I thought about the statement that I had heard R.C. Sproul say. And I was like, that is the answer. Justice owed. Mercy given at times, depending on the case, justice owed.
It's 100% right, except when it's a law enforcement officer who does something that we don't think is right. Then it's justice is owed.
Never mercy.
And never mercy.
Interesting. Yeah.
Which is wild, because that's your authority who's been put in place to be the one who has the sword and punish and fights after evil and praises the good.
Yeah.
But instead,
yeah.
It's like opposite world, dude. And that's the world system.
For sure.
It is the world system.
It's the world system.
We're being deceived. We're believing a lie. We're not believing what is true when we believe that mercy is owed and justice is.
Yeah. It's wild to me that the message of the cross like can come into a conversation about this and can bring like clarity to a conversation like this. Because I think there's so much confusion in our world and our culture. Excuse me. I think there's so much confusion because people like they don't know truth.
Right.
So if you are a professing Christian and you know the truth and you know the truth of the cross, you know the truth of the gospel, you understand that you are a sinner and that you deserve justice, but you also understand and receive what Christ has done for you on the cross, that he's taken your sin, excuse me.
Are you all right, dude?
Yeah. And imputed his righteousness unto you. Like it just brings a level of clarity even to this conversation. The fact that justice is owed and mercy is given. And I think, you know, we talk about a lot of things on this podcast, but, you know, I don't think any are as important as the truth of the word, the truth of the gospel, the truth of Christ, the truth of the cross. Like, I don't think any are as important as that.
Yeah, I agree. And when you hear us say justice is owed, we're not saying that the thief who stole a car deserves death.
No,
that's not what we're saying. Not in society. That's not what we're saying. We're just saying there has to be some level of justice. Like
right.
There has to be some type of punishment. Like, I don't know what that looks like, but like, it looks like something other than what
right.
we're doing.
Completely opposite of what we're doing.
Right.
I mean, if you're this 12-year-old, he's just walking the street.
He doesn't. Yeah.
They're doing nothing to him. They can't do anything.
So
to
I'm
him.
going to keep pursuing evil because
Yeah.
I don't care, and
Right.
nobody else obviously cares.
And then the question is that love? Because what if he crosses the path of the wrong person, and they're like, "Oh, you're trying to steal
which is
my
what
car?"
happened.
Right. Now that was a little different. They were actually shooting at that guy.
Yeah.
But let's say he just crosses the path of a person who is like, "No, you're not taking my car, and in fact, I'll kill you to keep you from taking my car."
Yeah.
Have we in the law enforcement community done that 12-year-old a good thing or a bad thing? Have we helped him or not helped him? And that's also the confusion. What is love? Is love just allowing
someone to do whatever they want, whenever they want? Yeah.
To act on whatever feelings they have, which is where we're at. You act on whatever feelings you have. You do you. Your truth is your truth. You just do whatever you want. Is that how we raise our kids? Is that love? If our kids are like, I don't care what you say, Dad, like, this is what I want to do. And I'm like, okay, you do you, you know, I love you.
All I want to eat is tasty cakes.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, you have to have some broccoli. And they're like, well, I'm not doing that.
I don't feel like it.
I'm going to eat just tasty cakes. Well, you're a terrible father if you let them do that. You are a terrible father.
You're not loving them.
You're not loving them.
Right.
Yeah. You're an unloving father if you do that.
Or if you and if you catch them at 9 p.m. at night sneaking out of the room to eat tasty cakes and you slap their hand, you're saving them maybe from diabetes.
The beaties.
The beaties. Got them.
Yeah, man.
All right, good conversation, Gary.
Yeah.
We were all over the place in this episode. We had to throw it together fast though.
Dude, we hammered it out. Yeah, our
Dude,
schedules are wild, dude.
Dude, I got kids playing sports. I got kids playing sports. It's basically what it is.
And work and all the stuff,
Yeah.
but yeah. Oh, man.
Episode 19.
It's in the books, I guess, as they say, right?
In the book.
This was fire. Isn't that what they say, too? This episode was fire.
Is that what they say? I wish there was you know what? I'm going to start muting you at the end of episodes.
Because I just say dumb stuff?
Yeah,
how do you want to end it,
You feel like you don't need to. You feel this need that you have to like
I like
have
to
a
fade
closing.
off. I like to fade off into the sunset.
I bring the music in. We fade out as the music plays.
Yeah.
The music's already playing. It's already playing. We're fading out.